This is Beauty Manifested, and I'm dating the Tej. I'm here today with my grandmother, Laura. This is Grannyelle, and she's going to be chit-chatting.
No.
And she's going to be chit-chatting today.
Mr. Tej, my grandchildren call me Gigi. Those are my great-grandchildren, and that's for great-grandmother. And I think Gigi sounds a lot better than Grannyelle and great-grandmother. This morning, every now and then I try to look for something for which I should be thankful. And of course I never have to, because I always have something. Each time I'm off to a really, really good start because I woke up. And at this point in time, waking up is a big deal, you know. And of course, I always look out the window to see if the world is still here. And this morning, it was so bright, it was unbelievable. And I knew that the first thing I was going to listen to was somebody saying how hot it is. And that goes along with waking up. If it's hot, that means I can feel it. I got some sense left over. And then, of course, I got caught into the Roe v. Wade thing. And that's a real big controversy for a lot of people. And I think there are many religious parts involved in it. There are personal parts involved in it. And there are parts for people who really, really want to have children. But I think a lot of people don't consider those that are criticizing those who are basically for it, that there are so many people who have children and they're not cared for. There are people who have children that they didn't want and they are mean to them. And they have people who are doing all of this criticism of the people who are on that side, the blacks, the browns, the people who are without. That society doesn't consider that these people need a lot more than just criticism. And they need to be fed. They need to be nurtured personally. Have somebody to put their arms around them and say it's going to be all right. And when I consider this, it's because of my roots. And my roots, I'm from a family of 15. And I was number 14. And I frequently feel, suppose my mother had thought, I got enough now, I'm through. And I realize and think about all of the good things that I've had. And the things that my mother used to say to me all the time when people were complaining about whatever it was. But one of the things Mama used to say was when someone said, why are you smiling? What makes you think you've got so much? And Mama always said, you woke up this morning, but we did not have any money, but we were never poor. And my son and I frequently get into the thing about we were never poor. And he says, no, you weren't poor, y'all was poor. And of course, and I laugh about that. But the thing is, I realize that when you look at people about our former president, He had everything that money could buy, but he did not have any character. He was poor like you could not believe, because with all of the things that he never had enough to share with someone else. And he thought that he should make rules for other people and not share anything with anybody. And he thought that, I don't know, but somehow or other, I'm at that point in time now when I hear people talking about running for the next president and this, that, and the other. And I was never the sharpest knife in the drawer when it came to social studies and history. But when I hear them talking about him running for president again, with all of the noise that they're making for Roe v. Wade, and all of what is going on in Congress, and I look at the congressmen that are sitting there, and the first thing that comes to my mind is that as I look across there, these are the people who are representatives of America. In spite of the fact that in America, or in the world in general, females make up more than 50% of the population. Here in America, we are looking at this House of Representatives and 100 senators, where I don't know how many men there are, but there are a lot more men than there are females. And when I look at 435 representatives, there are a lot more men than there are females. And the funny thing is, there are a lot more white faces than there are black faces, or brown faces, or yellow faces. And I go back to that. Give me your tired, your poor, your hungry huddle masses longing to be free. And I'm looking at the females in this country. And you wonder, how can anybody who is sitting in the driver's seat not see that there is a large disparity between the females and males in this country? And that females are just now beginning to rail, and not because of Roe v. Wade. That's a very personal thing. It's hard for me to get into. As I said, being one of 15, I've got some real feelings for that. But a person who finds this anathema to whatever it is in which they believe, you got to do something about that. You need to go to the people who are sitting at that table and wonder how they are allowed to make rules by which females have to live, by which black, brown, yellow, or as my mother used to say, black, white, grizzly, or gray, to which I added purple with chartreuse polka dots. That was hard. But the thing is, how do you come up with something that there are all of these people who are supposed to be taking care of the less fortunate, the less well prepared. How can you say that that's all right? How are they allowed to get away with that? How are they allowed to run for term after term after term and not take care of the people for whom they were elected? And the other thing is, we start to talk about a new election. We need to start talking about a limit on the ages, just as you are allowed, you may run for these offices at 35, I believe it is. Maybe it's a little younger now. But there needs to be a cutoff age at which you may run and be elected. Because to have someone who is 70, 75 years old running for president, that's a no-no. And let me tell you why I think that's a no-no. I'm old. I'm 87 years old. I should not, had I been allowed to run at 70, be president. And I think that I'm in fairly good mind right now. But you know that statistically, you're bound to die at 70, 75 years old. So cutoff age for running for president should be 60 years old. And that way, 2 terms, you'll be 80. That gives you a long time. And if you've got something to offer, that gives you a long time. But if you're running because you want to represent your constituency. You want to serve them. You want to get what they deserve. And you want education to be part of what is offered to the children of these people so that they are able to take care of themselves, their parents, their grandparents, your parents, your grandparents. But this is something that should be part of whatever the conversation is. And when they talk about having put up $10 billion for something, and they say that like they're talking about a dime. And I don't think the people to whom they're speaking have any idea, or they may have some idea, but it's all about what it can buy. And if it can't buy you peace of mind, if it can't buy you something that makes you want to get up in the morning, makes you want to be kind to your neighbor, makes you want to know who your neighbor is. How many of you know your neighbors? How many of you would go out and help your neighbor if they were in trouble? I grew up in a neighborhood where I grew up with people who were neighbors keepers, where before you got home, if you did something wrong, it was on the fence, literally. Old ladies got over the fence and would say, you know what that gal did on her way home? She's so fast and she did this. Can you imagine what that's like? Can you imagine having somebody call your mama and say something like that? Picture that. And I would run as fast as I could if I was the gal they were talking about. And say, Mama, Miss Emma said, and it is not. And as it happened, my mother knew me well enough that most of the time she knew that Miss Emma made a mistake, or that Miss Emma was just being a busybody, and she would listen to her and say whatever it was. But this is what happens again when you teach your children to kind of do the right thing. That's the other thing. My mother used to say all the time, tell the truth, child, because a lie don't last too long. Of course, you tell your kids that, and it's true. Number one, if you don't lie, you don't have to pay attention to what you say, because you knew what you said and you can keep on stepping. But when you lie, you're going to have to carry a notebook with you and write down what you said, when you said it, how you said it, where you put the periods. That's not nice. It's not good to have to do that. That's no way to live. And besides that, it wouldn't make your grandmother happy either. Miss Teach, do you think I've expressed my opinion about enough things today? Did I have an opinion about a lot of things?
You did. I think that was a good message. Do you have anything else to say?
Thank you for having me. See you next time.
Until next time, thank you so much. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Subscribe for more of Gigi and her
by the way,
antics.
I'm available for public speaking if ever you need me.
Yes.